We are bringing you a little bit more of a quiet, intimate service because, well, that's our vibe. I find that in the past couple of weeks in particular, I have needed to go within in a very different way. I have been performing as a human, as we all have been performing as humans, for a long time. I have had the grace and the pleasure and the honor to perform as a performer for about 45 of my 61 years. And yet something is needed that's different. I've taken to calling it unperforming. For me, it's about going back to spiritual roots, finding my way however I can to a grounded sense that no matter what happens, as the Daily Word reminded us today so beautifully. By the way, I really should read the Daily Word in advance of coming to preach, and yet it's always a delight that what I have felt I wanted to share matches perfectly. And those of you who've been here when I've been preaching before have seen that happen. It's interesting. There's a lot of magic if you're open to seeing it. So I've needed to go within because I can make very little sense of the day-to-day in our human world. I can make very little sense of the deep, deep and painful dichotomy of school children annihilated, as our current administration might call it, or obliterated. At the same time that there's also song available, at the same time that resiliency and light is present. That dichotomy is the challenge that we all face, is not being brought into the lie that life is an either or. Life is not an either or, life is a both and. There is struggle, and there is survival, and there is even thriving. And what we are about as a congregation, what we are about as a movement, is coming to understand that that peace is really only found within. But I have found as a human playing with that that can be very lonely. I think that the spiritual journey itself is lonely. If you take it seriously and you realize that you are the answer, but you are the answer when connected to other yous. When we understand that, it implies personal responsibility. And personal responsibility is hard. We live in a world where what is actually echoed and shown to us is the opposite of personal responsibility, accountability, and sort of deep ownership. What are we to do with that? If we pay attention to that, and as humans, this is what we do, we learn by example, we adjust and tweak our behavior by example, well, that might have said that none of you would show up this morning, that you would remain glued to your television or your radio, you would remain glued to your personal screen. I think I have 7, if I count all the screens in my life. But instead, you chose to show up here. And I believe you chose to show up for the same reason that I drove a couple of hours down from the North Shore to join you today. Because I cannot find and be with God and create a home without others. Not just because I am a off-the-charts extrovert, but because energetically there needs to be an exchange ongoing that reminds me of my humanity, especially in these times, that reminds me that I have work to do here, that I came here incarnate to be able to care and be kind and be here for one another. But we forget that. So I have some thoughts about what to do when you forget, which is based on my own toolkit that I have been developing. So as some of you know, I stepped out of my marriage after many, many years and a great deal of couples therapy. I decided courageously to step out of my marriage about 18 months ago. Very amicably, if ever a separation after 16 years is amicable. And I moved from a shared apartment and a shared energy exchange into a little small, I don't even know, really, 650 square feet, maybe? A little one-bedroom apartment. It's lovely. It's lonely. It's lonely because what I am left with when I choose not to distract myself with substances or craving or longing, these days substances is Cocoa Krispies. I can easily eat 3 bowls at a time. And my sugar spikes. And then I'm angry. How interesting, just to observe the body and how it works. If I'm not distracting, guess what I'm left with? Me. I'm left with me. But if we are to believe the daily word, being left with me means that I'm whole. Cool. What does that do for me on a Saturday night, last night at 9 o'clock, when after talking with Jack and setting the music for this morning, I thought, well, what do I do now? And that list of distractions came up, and I thought, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make another choice. And one of the ways that I learned to make healthier choices is that I literally have a toolkit of physical things. Because I think what I need are reminders to come back to strengthen my understanding that I am the presence of God, as each and every one of you are, and my work is to tune this instrument to be able to take it out into the world. And I believe that that is our responsibility. I said no a couple of Sundays in a row to coming down here because I didn't feel, honestly, because I couldn't inside of me find that balance between the light, sweet, happy, positive thinking pieces of new thought and actually my call to gather people to figure out together, what the heck do I do today? How can I be of service? That balance is really hard to find, especially if we have been living in a little bit of a sleep because we've been allowed to. We have been privileged and allowed to live at sleep. And we live in a beautiful area. I live on the North Shore looking out at the water. We have the water 10 minutes away. Our lives are pretty good. And they're going to get more challenging very quickly. And so I don't come to deliver that message to bum anybody out. I come to link it with what to do. So some of the ways that I have come back to myself, I made notes. It's almost like a gratitude list, I realized. I don't have time to go through all of them, but the bottom line is I'm learning to trust and verify. I'm learning to be in the confusion and in the clarity of the moment. And when the clarity of the moment somehow says to my wholeness, you're good, you're going to be okay, then that's a win. And I do that. This is a little bit like Mr. Rogers' show and tell, for those of you who grew up with Mr. Rogers. Few things that I use to remind myself. One is a stone that was given to me just a few weeks ago in a workshop. It's amethyst, and it's worn down. If anybody's ever seen these, they're worn down perfectly. You would think that this was made for me because my thumb fits perfectly. And I've heard it called a worry stone, but I'm going to tell you, for me, I'm learning to think of it as a hope stone. An alchemical way to take my fear and worry and just with a few rubs, remind myself, oh, okay, there's some hope available. Hope is available. Hope is not always available to me, but hope is available. So that's one reminder. You don't need to use this. I'm serious when I suggest pull anything that is representative for you of something light or good. I saw my father's ring on my dresser this morning, and I thought about putting that in my pocket. I have a couple of other medallions, that I use, program medallions and other things. Whatever reminds you. Really, church is about reminding. But some of the other cool stuff, when you are in need of help, if you are just able to, as I would say, look up, see something different, and remember that good is coming, magically it does. So I was in a, I don't want to say a dark place, but I was in a confused place, not a lot of clarity, just 2 days ago. And what showed up in the mail was something that I ordered a while ago, which is a new book. I don't get a piece of the profits, but this is a new book called Songbird in the Light. I'm not going to read it, though I would love to sit down and read the book. But I will read one line. This is written by Billy Porter. Billy Porter is an African-American actor, singer, dancer, EGOT, does just about everything in the world. And to be able to do all the magic things that he does in the world, like me, he had to overcome a lot because what he was told was that he was worthless. As a young gay boy in church, he was told dichometrically, you are brilliant and a child of God, and you're going straight to hell for it. This is the dichotomy. We all live with many of them. I don't jump up on the cross, for that purpose this morning, but I let you know that it is a triumph that Billy Porter is alive, let alone decided that he could write a children's book, which is gorgeous. And I will just read you one line. And I offer this, again, as a reminder. Again, I love doing story hour, but we don't have time for me to read the whole thing. Here's one line. It's about a little boy trying to realize what he has to offer the world, which is essentially, at the time, his song. So he's about 6 years old, and he's with a woman named Miss Irene. I had a Mrs. Wagner, African-American, and that's important to the story because her heart was wider than many, who I started seeing in school because I wouldn't play with kids at recess because I didn't know how. So this was 3rd grade, and I got a chance to be with the school counselor. They had school counselors then, I hope they still do, in elementary school. And she looks a lot like the picture in the book. So he's sitting at 6 or 7 years old with Miss Irene, and this says, Miss Irene likes my songs. And she says, quote, Songbird, don't be scared, sing. Songbird, don't be scared, sing. Some of you know that I spent a year, this past year minus 6 months, courageously working with a duo out of Los Angeles, recording an album. Well, only one song on that album has been released 9 months later. It is on Spotify under Adam Sutton. It's a sort of a fight song that I wrote for what I might call the resistance movement called Indivisible. Check it out. Again, Adam Sutton, Spotify. But I will tell you, the rest of the music is not released. The rest of the music is not released because it is tied up with so much guilt and grief and regret that I'm releasing it to the world at 61 and not 26. The 26-year-old is the young man who paid $500 to get a demo made that I could send to Star Search long before The Voice and long before American Idol in 1984. I was excited to audition for this incredible talent show, Star Search. And I didn't hear from them, and that began a long list of moments where I thought my song wasn't welcome. I will tell you right now, whatever your song looks like or sounds like, it is more desperately needed now that we just stop struggling and sing than ever. Because we together are an antidote to the dark. We are the light. There is a light. The light actually is not in the waves. The light is not at the beach. The light is not inside of the 3rd episode of whatever you are streaming on Netflix as you are beautifully and perfectly anesthetizing yourself. I do it as well, and we need that. But we also need to figure out when it is ours to tune in and ask, what is mine to do? And so, last week I did something bold. I invited a friend of mine who is a healer, teacher, writer, painter. He's many things, as we all are. And one of the things I knew that he had done for people were house blessings. And so I realized, in talking to God a couple of weeks ago, that I think I need some help to change the energy in my own home, in that little place that I told you about. Because I have not been able to get any of the 5 dining room tables. It's a very small place. When I say dining room table, it fits 2, sometimes 3. I've had 4 that I've tried. I've had 3 couches. This is true. You can look this up. I don't know where you'd find it because I didn't tell anybody, but I'm telling you. It has been an ongoing journey to feel at home in that physical space. And here's the truth. I can't feel at home. I am wrecked with grief. I'm wrecked with the cognitive dissonance of the untruths and the lack of true information and clarity that we can share as one body. I'm racked by that grief that is so intense, but that we don't even have a name for it. There are clinical names for it. I have looked it up. The free-floating grief and fear that many of us wake up with or that we get hit with during the day, I'm holding. But I'm also holding very personal grief for reasons that I've shared and others that I have not. And so I invited my friend, his name is Peyton. I invited him over to do sort of, I asked for a house blessing and an energy clearing, and we got out sage. Some of this may be very foreign to some of you, but we got out sage and we lit it, and so we were sort of releasing energy and trying to move things in a positive direction. And he pulled out some cards. They weren't tarot cards, but he pulled out some cards. And the 3 cards together told a linear story. One was Wake Up. The second one was called the Trailblazer. And the third one was Be the Fire. Hence the name of today's talk, Fanning the Flames Within. And I looked at those cards and I thought, oh, because I know that the fire that we build and that the gifts that I have in holding that fire with you are the gifts that are now called for. I knew that when I attended seminary in New York City 22 years ago. But somehow I thought that that could be an intellectual exercise. I could remain spiritual, but I wouldn't have to be a warrior. And I do not mean that in the same way that Pete Hegseth might use it. I didn't know that I really was going to be called to be a warrior for truth and for light and for peace and for good. And so it's becoming clear. So I looked at those 3 cards, and I looked at my friend Peyton, and I gave him that look, which was, and a few other choice words. And he smiled, knowing me well, and said, yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to step up. You know that line from A Few Good Men? At one point I wanted to put it on the wall of my kitchen at another moment in time. Not this kitchen, it's not that big, but an old kitchen that I had. I wanted to write, "You can handle the truth," across the longest wall in my kitchen, to remind me of my capacity to be in reality moment to moment, no matter how challenging it is. Let me tell you with great love and complete belief, you can handle the truth. Whatever that is. You can handle your personal truths. You can handle the trauma that you've come through to be here with us today. You can handle the joy. You can handle the pain. You can. We showed up. I got here. I set 3 alarms. 2 of them didn't work, but 1 did. And I got here. And I do that through all of these ways in which I remind myself that we are good, we are God, we are capable of greatness. And then I set off and find other people to play with. So in that moment, it was with Peyton. And then he created an exercise on the spot and said, now I want you to do some drawing and some writing. And what I drew was a picture of a lighthouse with a fire at the top. Not a beacon, not a light. I'm sure, again, there's a word for that. Many of you, we live on the Cape. You probably know it. But what I saw was a massive bonfire. And I saw people coming in ones and twos and threes and sixes, all different kinds of people, streaming into the bottom of this lighthouse. And I saw me in the role that in that moment I heard God's voice call the fire tender. With my tenderness, I am able to tender into the world, along with each and every one of you, a fire that is necessary now. And I leave you today, when we walk away from one another, with the imperative that you find your fire and you employ your own toolkit to fan those flames, to bellow into them, loud or quietly, however you are comfortable. And then I invite you to step beyond your comfort. I invite you to courageously move into the light and carry at least one other person with you. That's our work. Whether we're looking at the life of Jesus Christ or Buddha, or Allah, any spiritual avatar, any being that reminds us in human form or in the metaphysical plane that we are here to care for one another, to be kind, to create connection, so that we can continue to grow the fire, and that light and that smoke can send signals far from where we are currently inhabiting our homes. Our home is sacred. Our home is God, and God lives within us. And we know that by being with other people and affirming the light and saying the quiet part out loud, that God is here now and with us in every moment, light and dark, navigating the gray together. Amen. One of the pieces that I have with Jack and Oriana brought to you before is one of my favorite songs. I could not sing it this morning. It's called Home. This in, eyes closed, eyes open, however it moves you. Maybe even imagining your own home, the home you longed for, the home you left. When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I were home. I wish I was back there with the things I've been knowing. Wind that makes the tall grass bend into leaning. Suddenly the snowflakes that fall have a meaning. Sprinkling the sea makes it all clean. Maybe there's a chance for me to go back now that I have some direction. It would sure be nice to be back home with all that love and affection, and just maybe I can convince time to slow up, giving me enough time in my life to grow up. Time, be my friend, let me start again. Suddenly my world's gone and changed its face, but I still know where I'm going. I have had my mind spun around in space, and yet I have watched it growing. Oh, if you're listening, God, please don't make it hard to know if we should believe the things we see. Tell me, should we run away? Should we try and stay? Or would it be better to just let things be? Living here in this brand new world might be a fantasy, but it's taught me to love